Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. I'm your host Sam Moores and we are back. We've just had week one. Football is fully back. We're back into the swing of things now. And joining me to talk all about week one as well as looking forward to some of the games in week two is the one and only Olly Darcy. Now we're both together watching a lot of week one on Sunday at our Full 10 Yards kickoff party at Felson's in Birmingham. So thank you for those who came. It was a lot more people attended than last year, so it's good to see the growth that we've had over the last year, and it was nice to catch up with everyone who works for the network as well. Like I said, me and Olly were both there, and we've had one hell of a week one, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, football is back. No greater feeling. Week one was certainly an interesting one. Few expected results, few unexpected ones that we'll dissect in a minute. But yeah, it's back, and we've got 16 more weeks of this to come, which I cannot wait for. 17,
mate. We always forget the week 18.
I still keep forgetting.
We'll have 18 games soon over the next couple of years, and then it will feel 17 will be the new normal by then. So we're only going to get more and more football games, but because we've had the first for every single team, and we're just going to go through some of the storylines from week one before we get into the big game in week two this week, Dolphins at Bills, and then there's another one we'll talk about later on in the week as well, where the Bengals and the Chiefs play again. But we'll go back to week one. We'll just go through some takeaways for week one, and there's only one place to start, which is the last game that we saw on Monday night, where the CMC Christian McCaffrey-less 49ers dominated the New York Jets on Monday Night Football. The Niners beat Aaron Rodgers once again, which is against the storyline because there was so much hype about the Jets going into this game, especially after the year that they had last year where Rodgers lasted all but 4 snaps. But it was the Niners who got the headlines yesterday morning, winning in such dominant fashion, really, without Christian McCaffrey. 2023 Offensive Player of the Year was ruled out, literally out of the blue. No one was really expecting it when the inactive list came out on Monday evening. Former undrafted free agent Jordan Mason stepped up in his place with 147 yards and a TD on his 28 carries. It was a nice treat for me, this game, just having stayed up to watch the whole thing, having a primetime game finish before 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's because the Niners just controlled this game. They ran the clock down the entire game. 39 minutes time of possession, that's obviously double what the Jets had, running all over the Jets defense. Garrett Wilson looked great, but the rest of this Jets offense when on the field was vanilla. It felt very familiar to Rodgers in his last year in Green Bay. Would you say you're more impressed by the Niners or more disappointed by the Jets?
It's an interesting one. With all the hype that was around the Jets, I would probably say the Jets, because I think this is what we almost expected from the 49ers, definitely defensively. I was going to say offensively for the 49ers, I think it wasn't a 100% game from them. I mean, I'm pretty sure they did only score one touch. They only had one punt, but I think there was one touchdown. The rest were field goals. So there's a lot of red zone. They need to work on their red zone drives, potentially. Maybe that's just a week one thing.
Well, I was going to say a lot of it's probably because McCaffrey wasn't there. So, so much of their red zone offense is based on McCaffrey, that when he's not there, then...
Yeah, but then they had quite a few 40 and 50-yard field goals as well. It felt like they stalled. Maybe that was because they are missing McCaffrey, the best offensive player in the league. I think their defense was as stout as it always has been. I don't know whether you can say they had a proper challenge with that Jets offense. It'll be interesting to see how both carry on playing. But as you say, it wasn't the most impressive showing from the Jets. I don't know. It's almost like Rodgers and Hackett have been found out, would you say? Because when they first came into the league together, 2020? Yeah, 2019, 2020. They were both, it was one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. And now, Hackett went to Denver and that didn't work. And now he's back with Rodgers. And, from week one, it's just not worked at all. So I hope for Rodgers' sake and Hackett's sake that they do improve, but I don't know. As you said, there was not a lot to go off from that performance.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's time to panic about the Jets, but because on paper they are really, really, really good. It's just I think they're better than they show, but they did get dominated in this game. It may not, the scoreline may not show it, but they were absolutely dominated. Like the Niners were they were almost playing with them the way it was. They're better than they show, but there are two things that have to be on their side this season if the Jets are going to do anything, because otherwise, it's going to be a terrible season compared to their expectations, because their expectations are, win a playoff game, Super Bowl, because of how good this roster is. But that roster is full of injury-prone players. There also are some serious coaching concerns with Hackett, with Salah, because they get outcoached a lot. They're going to have to win a division to have real success, you'd have to say. And in division, they get outcoached by whether it's McDermott, McDaniel, Belichick before as well. Obviously, Jerome Mayer is there now, which we'll talk about him later on, but he looks like he's going to be a good head coach as well. Robert Saleh is 4-14 against the AFC East. And two of those wins came last year when the Bills weren't 100% either. So you really have to question whether, because he does get outcoached a lot, especially by by people who know that defensive scheme, whether it's Mike McDaniel or other opponents that with the offense, that have gone against that scheme a lot in camp and obviously in training and everything. There is a concern about getting outcoached. They've got an easy schedule compared to the Bills, compared to the Dolphins, compared to most playoff contenders in the AFC. So that does that isn't in their favour. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't concerned, because they got outcoached again, and to be able to win the Super Bowl, you can't be outcoached.
No, that was another big takeaway from it, and I think that was the story of week one. The teams that were very well coached, it showed, and I think that's the story of week one for many years now. But I think Monday Night Football epitomised it. You've got Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers that are just so well drilled and so coached on both sides of the ball, and now you've got the Jets, who are, in coaching wise, in real concern. I mean, as you said, we'll talk about it later with some other games that had those issues. And again, coaching is king in this league. You may have the best offense or the best defense, but if your coaching is not up to scratch, you will get found out in this league big time.
Absolutely. We'll go on to a game that was very similar with the Bengals starting slow again, being upset by the Patriots. From one disappointing AFC contender to another in the Bengals, because Zach Taylor's Bengals got off to a poor start in week one again. We've had that a lot. For a bit like deja vu, the Bengals starting out slow again. Gerard Mayo gets his first win as a head coach in his first game as Patriots head coach, beating the Bengals 16-10. Very typical week one game. This sloppy early on. The Patriots found some success with their run game, which ultimately won them this game. The Bengals in offense were very slow, missing T. Higgins, who likely starts his final season as a Bengal with a hamstring injury. There's no doubt the Bengals are a better team, but the sloppiness against a very good New England defense, their offense is not great at all, but their defense is, it was a real battle between the Bengals offense and the New England defense. The Bengals offense was sloppy, and turnovers cost them on offense in this game, because it's a one-score game. They turn the ball over a couple of times. The turnovers are gonna be the difference in the game. The Bengals defense also couldn't tackle. There's a terrible game. The stat that was put into our group chat yesterday, that 118 of 120 of Ramondre Stevenson's rushing yards were after contact. So the Bengals just couldn't tackle Ramondre. Credit to the Patriots, of course, but for the Bengals, this team, they needed a quiet off-season with no injuries or no drama in camp. They got the opposite, and that showed in week one, didn't it?
coaching again, I've always been bemused as to why the Bengals have kept Zach Taylor. I mean, they have got results, and yeah, they got to the Super Bowl, but I again outplayed, outcoached then, and it's been the same since. And again, week one just epitomised it with, as you say, a pretty rough off season, which they could have sorted far earlier. But that's another debate. At least they have Jamar Chase playing, but they missed him sitting out of practice and not playing any snaps in preseason, which a lot of teams also didn't do with preseason. Not playing any snaps really hurt them. Bengals were the biggest losers in week one by far because they were just so sloppy on both sides of the ball, like really poor. The two fumbles, especially that one, was it about 2-3 yards out? Fumbled into the back
Tanner
of the end zone.
Hudson, he literally fumbled almost into the end zone. They also had a touchdown that was dropped by Mike Gesicki as well. Again, sloppiness, like a clear touchdown. Yeah, they gave away some points there, and again, fumble, another turnover. Like it, Burrow wasn't a problem. You could say this time last year it was Burrow that was the issue. He threw a couple picks. Like it wasn't Burrow. The hand's clearly bothering him. You know, there's a clip going around social media where he kept moving his hand like this, just because it didn't feel right. Because obviously that was the issue last year, and going into camp, and so that is something to watch. Whether his hand is, whether it'll ever be the same again. But he wasn't the issue. It was just they couldn't really run the football. The lack of Higgins is a big need, is a big thing as well. There's no. I think with them, they always start poor, but this time you could see that they're not going to be like the Patriots are probably going to have half the wins that the Bengals end up with, but they need to get their crap sorted together if they want to get a home playoff game, or because this team can't afford them to lose too many games, and I'm not so confident they win next week. Playing against the Chiefs, like say, I mean they're the only team that can do it, but I'd say that could properly play beat the Chiefs convincingly, or because they've done it 3 times before, but I'm less confident now because this game is so earlier in the season and of how they've looked.
I think in the AFC, if you drop 2 or 3 eggs, if you lay 2 or 3 eggs like the Bengals have, you can see a home playoff game just disappear before your eyes. Miami did it really well on Sunday. They did not play well at all, but they grinded out a win against Jacksonville, which was a big AFC win. The Bengals did not do that against the Patriots, and they're the games that will cost you in tiebreakers, in AFC tiebreakers, and just in the record in general. It would be the most Bengals thing to come back and win week 2 because they probably they can.
It would.
They can, but as you say, it's too early in the season, I think, for them to get to that form of beating the Chiefs. And I can't see them doing it. If they do, then boom, they're right back on track. And if anyone can, the Bengals can with this roster, both offense and defense. They are pretty stacked.
Yeah, but the defense is a step up. I think that's the thing that disappointed me the most was the defense because it had a step back last year already. We talked about that. Me and Liam did in the AFC preview podcast, and then like they have talent on that defense, and just simple things like obviously you can tell they haven't played in the preseason because simple things like tackling, like that. Just again, 118 yards after contact for Ramondre Stevenson. That is something that is just unheard of. And fair play to the Patriots as well, like Gerard Mayo, OC, Alex Van Pelt as well. They're the Pats playing hard. They may be one of the least talented teams in the league, but like the Cardinals, you could say last year, it looks like they are well coached, well drilled, and that's good for the future for the Patriots, isn't it?
I mean, I think everyone expects them to have the first pick in the draft, really. And then they come out and, they play tough and take that win. Gerard Mayo is going to be, I think, from week one, looks like he can be a really good head coach and just a proper head coach, which is what, honestly, which turns around some teams. Look at the Detroit Lions; it turns around teams. So I don't know whether we're seeing that with the Patriots at the moment. They deserved it. They totally deserved it because they played the better football by far. And yeah, I mean, who knows what their season's going to be like? They could be a really interesting team to watch this season. I don't think Jacoby Brissett's going to lead them to many wins this season, unfortunately, for New England fans. But yeah, I think it's a testament to coaching and a testament to how things are not all too bleak in New England right now for them.
Absolutely. Right, a similar story for the Steelers, who got into winning ways again, starting off winning a game they're not expected to win, and with their defense just absolutely killing the Falcons' offense. They Steelers failed to upset the Falcons, winning in Atlanta. And Justin Fields will start in week 2 as well, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, obviously, this was Kirk Cousins' debut in Atlanta, with the all-new Falcons losing to the Steelers team. They didn't even score a touchdown. 6 Chris Boswell field goals were enough in a fun 16-10 game. If you love defensive football, neither offense reached 300 yards in this game. It was a very close, low-scoring game. Both teams were numerically very similar. The difference was Kirk Cousins' 2 interceptions, and the fact that the Steelers were twice as good as the Falcons on third down, because Kirk did just not look good. I mean, obviously, coming off an Achilles, that there were questions as to whether he would look a little bit rusty. Aaron Rodgers did the same thing in the Jets game. He didn't, the movement's off. But it was Kirk's decision making that was the real issue. Both throws were very questionable. He had another turnover later in the game as well, a fumble after a miscommunication. And the thing that surprised me the most about this Falcons team is the O-line was terrible. And this O-line is on paper one of the best units in the league. They've invested first round picks into it. They've invested money into it. They've got guys, sort of 6th and 7th guys who'd start for a lot of teams. But TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith just had an absolute field day against this Falcons offensive line, causing Cousins to try and get a ball out quick, sort of rush his decisions, and it was his worst game according to PFF since week 2 of 2019. So his worst game in 5 years. The passing game as a whole was just off. It's not a good thing for the Falcons at all, was it?
I mean, for an offense that is as stacked as the Falcons is, really, I think it was arguably one of the worst performances of the week, probably, because you bring Kirk Cousins in for a bit of stability, and you got the complete opposite of that from his decision-making and his play. You get, Bijan Robinson, and there was only 89 yards rushing from the Falcons, so that O-line didn't help Robinson at all in that regard. And then the receivers for the Falcons just could not get going at all.
Ray McLeod was their top target. When you got Drake London, when you got players like Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod wearing number 34, which for a receiver looks really weird in the first place, was their go-to guy in this one, which is the problem because you got Kyle Pitts, you got Drake London. Drake London did nothing in this game.
Well, Kyle Pitts got that touchdown. It was a bit of it was blown coverage, but he got that touchdown. I was like, right, here we go. The Falcons are going to do something now offensively. They've got it rolling, and then they blanked to the third and fourth quarter. I mean, they come up against a Steelers team again, well drilled. Mike Tomlin, we know what he's about. Their defense is
their defense wins games, and that was on Sunday it was their defense. TJ Watt basically won on this game on his own.
Yeah, but that's what the Steelers have done. That's what he's done for years. That's why he could probably easily win Defensive Player of the Year again. I think for the Falcons, yes, for Kirk Cousins as well, it was a tough opening assignment against the Steelers. But coming into this, the Falcons were expected to pretty much walk all over the Steelers, and I think I don't know whether they almost expected it. Maybe a little bit of complacency. I think Kirk Cousins was looking a bit rusty as well. I mean, I said to you before this game kicked off that I think this is the time where the Steelers are not going to get their over 500 record with Tomlin. And once again, I think they prove a lot of people wrong. So, yeah, for the Falcons, I think that was probably, along with Cincinnati, that was definitely the biggest disappointment, especially offensively, because there's a whole lot of hype around there. But credit to the Steelers and Justin Fields as well for hanging tough. Even though they didn't look too great offensively, I think they'll take that and 100% work with that going forward.
It was nice because Fields played a sensible game of football, which you didn't really normally see him do in Chicago. It was actually PFF's 7th best pass with the football as well, despite completely avoiding the middle of the field. Always, if you've seen his passing charts, it's funny. It's literally like there's a square in the middle of the field where there's no attempted passes in the middle of the field. It looks like a pitcher who's just missed all of his all of his throws into the box in baseball. Like it's just a box of nothing. It's just literally Fields' throws are just to the sideline, to the sideline, to the sideline. But it worked. It was it was a clear game plan there. Again, him being careful with the football, 3 big time throws as well. So he had some impressive throws there. Fields did, and he's earned himself another start. It's already been confirmed that he's going to be starting in Denver, even if Russell Wilson is healthy. Fields has been confirmed the starter for this week, which is something obviously because it could have been Wilson's revenge game going into Denver there. But fair play to Justin Fields. Especially when the Falcons' defense was the best unit of that on the team that day. The Falcons' defense as well. It is you've got some. Again, Charlie said it in the podcast the other day. You've got probably the best safety duo in the league in Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. You've got AJ Terrell at corner. The pass rush is not great, but
I
the
think
Steelers.
Matt Judon did come in. I think Judon came in and got a sack though. I mean, bringing him in. Just,
what I was going to say as well is the Steelers, they were missing a couple of offensive linemen, so that evens out in that aspect. So another good start for Justin Fields, and now I'm thinking, a good start for Justin Fields, another good start for the Steelers, and the way it was, I'm not even sure we see Russ this year at all. With the way this team is built, I feel like, especially with Arthur Smith, our offensive coordinator, I feel like this is a team that fits Justin Fields, especially, and this is the thing, because the argument for Russ would be, he's probably more careful with the football, he's a veteran quarterback. But with the way Fields played on Sunday, I'd hand over to him for the rest of the season, if I'm being honest, especially as he's their future. And I think that's probably now, after the way he's played, it is in the back of their minds, them already declaring him the starter for this week.
Well, they sent a clear message out with the starter for this week. I mean, if you're willing to put all your eggs in the Fields basket for week 2, after his performance in week 1, which was very good, I think that shows the direction they do want to go in. I feel like the Steelers, although they want to play it safe, and that'll win you games in week 1 with a good defense carrying on into the season, that's not going to win them games. So it will be vital for Fields to expand his throw and just get more confidence in his game, because that's what Chicago has definitely hit his confidence big time. Last week, the performance last week will definitely help him build that confidence up. I mean, there was only 6 incompletions, I think, from him, which for him is really good, as you said, sensible play. If he can continue to do that and play, then yes, I can't see why Russell Wilson would take the field. But you've then got to let him take those risks. And we know the issues he's had in Chicago. Will he improve by building his confidence back up with careful play? That will be the big question for him. And if he can, then the Steelers have played this very, very well. Of course, if they bring out the best in Justin Fields, then they've improved on their quarterback position and they're set for years to come, if he turns out to be the player he was in college. If not, they have the safety blanket in Russ Wilson. But what's Russ Wilson going to be like? Because the last 2 years have not been pretty. So I'd almost call it a nice position for them to be in, really. if both of them fail, then obviously that's not the position they want to be in at all. But they have the potential for both quarterbacks to be really good in this system. So I don't know. It's a tricky one to judge. I think the Steelers are judging it really well at the moment, though, and giving Fields another start where he deserves it. But he's then got to make that step up throughout the season and lift the Steelers' play.
If I was a Steelers fan, I probably would say I'm feeling a lot more confident about this team now than I was this time last week. So that's certainly a bonus for them. As for the Falcons, then we'll see what happens, but not the best start for a team that has gone all in. Move over to some more impressive wins for two teams that we were low on in our preview pod, as both the Cowboys and the Saints won convincingly, which I mean, both were favoured in this game, but the way they won this game was very convincing. But these games are very convincing. It all started when Dak Prescott became the first $60 million quarterback, or $60 million player, a few hours before the game, signing a 4-year extension. The Cowboys' offense carried on from where it was last year. A big day for him and CeeDee Lamb. The run game was okay. I thought Ezekiel Elliott actually thought probably the best he's looked for a couple of years in this game, which was good for them as well. But the story of the day for me was perhaps Mike Zimmer's defense, which was all over the Cleveland offense. Especially, we thought that Dallas's defense, they've lost a couple of guys on that team. They've lost Dan Quinn, which is the big name, of course. He's now the head coach in Washington. But Mike Zimmer did a great job with that defense. And we were watching this game with Sean and Josh from our Browns pod on the network, and they've had enough of Deshaun Watson at this point. It was a tough start, but of course playing the Cowboys. But he looked just as bad as he has the last couple of years, which is not great for this team, is it?
We were told. Well, I said that it was the Falcons and the Bengals that probably had the worst week one, forgetting the performance that the Browns had. I think arguably, well, it probably was from where I ranked the Browns, thinking they would. I thought they would not dismantle the Cowboys, but I thought they would they'd properly beat them, and it was the complete opposite. It was a real tough watch as a Browns fan. Defensively, they weren't up to their high standards. They were still pretty good, but they had to deal with a good Cowboys offense, which I was surprised at how well they played, which they've always done in the regular season. The big question will be in 18, 19 weeks' time what they do. For the Browns, offensively, that was a real tough watch. And for Deshaun Watson, he's been out for a lot of time, and you can tell that he's rusty because that's not the Deshaun Watson that people know. But there has been little to no improvement since signing that ridiculous.
Well, this is his third season starting for the team now.
I know.
So admittedly, he's only played about 24 times, I think, or maybe even less than that. But this is his suspension was 4 years ago now. So going into this season, you'd like to think that this was the year that he would be able to step it back up, and that's just not been the case. And now we're talking about Jameis Winston starting in week 2, which is like the worst case scenario for the Browns because I mean Jameis, it will be probably a better safe pair of hands, but they've invested so much into Deshaun Watson that they're basically just saying this is over. This guaranteed contract, this whole thing. They even restructured his contract this off season. They were confident in him, and now the discussions are there as to. I think what we saw is not if Jameis Winston will play at quarterback for the Browns. It's when Jameis Winston will play at quarterback for the Browns.
It looked that way in week 1. You can't say no. Watson will stay in for the whole season because that performance just did not warrant it. I was one of those people that thought that Watson would turn up, would improve, and it just wasn't there. I think it showed how reliant they are on Nick Chubb. I think everyone knew how reliant they were on Nick Chubb, but not that much. Jerome Ford looked okay. He looked good with the ball, but he didn't get that many opportunities.
Their offensive line was the real disappointment. So last year, they were one of the best offensive line coaches in the league in Bob Callahan. Now he's of course gone to go help out his son Brian Callahan in Tennessee, so they've lost probably the best offensive line coach in the league, and that showed in this game because they were getting absolutely killed by the Cowboys. Like Micah Parsons had about 8 pressures or something stupid like that. Like Deshaun Watson was running for his life out there. He had the most pressures the offensive line for the Browns did this week, and yeah. So that was for an offensive line that's so good before run blocking and pass blocking, giving Joe Flacco or Thompson Robinson, whoever the hell played for the Browns at quarterback last year, because there are a few of the guys, a lot of times afraid, Watson was running for his life back there, and that didn't help. But yeah, I think the Browns defense looked okay. It looked good, but not as good as last year. And I think obviously it's hard to replicate that because they were so good last year. But yeah, the offensive line was terrible. The offense in general was terrible. The Cowboys were great on both sides of the ball. They looked better than we thought they would as well. I think it's just, and getting a win against a team that on paper look really good is important for the Cowboys as well, because they don't win too many big games like that. But I do slightly worry about them later on in the year, as you mentioned, just because of the way their roster stacks up, and they don't really have a run game as well. So
yeah, I think that's when the Cowboys question. I think Cowboys will find their answers to all these questions is down. We've seen this time and time again in the last few years. They can drop 30 plus points in a regular season game with these. What can he do in the playoffs? What can he do when it properly matters? And that's where we'll find out whether Dak deserves that contract. I've got my feelings about that contract. A few other people across Full 10 Yards have the same feeling. It would be for him personally, and for the NFL to see him play up to that contract would be great. Time will tell. As it always does. I think that
he's not a problem. Again, for me, he was probably the third best quarterback the whole of last year. He's not the problem in Dallas, in my opinion. It was just in the big game, the whole team imploded. Now, if the game went differently, I think we'd probably be feeling a lot better about that, because last year he was brilliant. And I just feel like it is just whether, because they've got so much money invested in players now, they've still got to pay Micah Parsons as well, because that deal's getting done. They've still got to pay Micah Parsons. They've just given CD a massive contract as well. I think it's more the rest of the Dallas roster so it will be on Dak to win, as himself, rather than win with the team, which it has been the last couple of years. So I think that's what we're looking at now, because there's no doubt that Dak deserves his contract after the way he played last year. It's just whether the team needed a Dak Prescott that massive, and I think that's the question.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and last year you got the stats don't lie. So he did. You would say he earned that contract. But again, you pay that money for results, and the Cowboys have been lacking in it for years. So, I mean, Jerry will be looking to get results after paying CD Lamb and Dak Prescott in the offseason. Yeah. It's another big season for the Cowboys, as it always seems to be.
Absolutely. We'll move over to the other team who were just outstanding compared to what we expected for them in week one, and that was the New Orleans Saints after their 47-10 win over the Carolina Panthers, with both Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara playing their best game in years. Carr finished the week as PFF's highest graded passer on a 3-touchdown day. The Saints were efficient, didn't punt until 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, so they were just scoring on every single drive. And the reason why Carr has looked so good is because he's back in the West Coast offense of Clint Kubiak, where he had success, obviously, in the West Coast offense with John Gruden in previous years in the Raiders, as well. His 2 best seasons have been in this offense, or at least variations of the West Coast offense, going away from what Sean Payton and Pete Carmichael ran the last couple of years in New Orleans. Positive signs for the Saints, because they have the talent on the roster. Just last year, 2 years, they've just been massively underwhelming. Carr was not great last year, but in this game, the offensive line looked great. Carr looked great. The run game looked great. Again, as I mentioned, Alvin Kamara, for a guy who's had multiple injuries, he's nearing his 30s now. He looked to have a step still, which is good. But I mean, so the Saints were a big surprise in that aspect, but it may also be, were Carolina just particularly bad. So we'll see as the season goes on, because especially on defense, they were terrible, and that obviously elevates because Carr only had about 200 passing yards, but the Saints just kept scoring like that. The time of possession tells you that Carolina probably would have been in this game because they had the ball so much, but it's because the Panthers just couldn't stop the Saints right away. Like, they just kept scoring. They had no pass rush as well. And the big disappointment for me with Carolina was they have some great defensive backs, but they were one of the best passing defenses last year. There's one of the things we talked about in the preview podcast, saying, at least they got a good defense. It was the offense that was terrible last year. Well, I'll tell you what, their defense was terrible. In coverage, they were abysmal. JC Horn got beat for a touchdown 3 times, and he's probably their best defensive back. And again, it was the only thing they were good at last year was their pass defense. Obviously, losing Brian Burns to the Giants and that trade's a big reason why you're losing your best pass rusher. They also lost Derek Brown, who is the best player on their team, all-pro defensive tackle in this game as well. And their offense, well, Bryce Young, 2 overthrows that led to an interception. I actually thought he was decent in the second half, but his poor first half killed the game. So yeah, disappointing for Carolina. A great start for the Saints, and for Dennis Allen, who is on the hot seat. His defense was great today, and it really did forcing a couple of turnovers. And Saints fans probably feeling a lot better. Panthers fans more hurt, isn't
it? You mentioned the Bryce Young first half, and that it killed them. It really did. Defensively, they dropped 30 points in the first half. That will kill you. But for Bryce Young, it was the chance to show that he can do something. And although you said, he played all right in the first half, in the second half, beg your pardon, that first half was just poor, really, really poor. Some of those throws was stuff you just do you do not expect. You don't expect from Bryce Young, and you don't really want to see in the NFL from your starting quarterback. I think the Panthers, who I was a bit higher on than what I thought that. Well, I was a lot higher on them than I thought the Saints were going to be. I was not rating the Saints. I was rating the Panthers a little bit, and that completely blew up in my face, and it blew up in the Panthers' face big time because, that was a real tough watch for everyone down in Carolina.
Absolutely. We'll go on, sticking with the quarterbacks, we'll go on to the rookie quarterbacks now, because 3 were in action this week, starting in week 1. We'll start with Jaden Daniels, whose Washington team lost 37-20 away to Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield was great in this game for the Bucs, 4 touchdowns, carrying on from where they were last year pretty much. But we're talking about the rookies, and the rookie that quarterback that impressed me the most this week was Daniels. We didn't get to see much of him as a passer, especially early on. It was a lot of design run plays early on, or RPOs where he decided to keep the ball. But from what we saw when he was passing, his arm certainly has a ton of zip. Nothing complicated. Sunday was all about his legs. He had 88 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns too. I thought for me he was the most impressive rookie quarterback. Needs to work on his grip. Fumbled twice, which is an issue. But I mean, most in fact every rookie had a fumble. A lot of quarterbacks had a fumble this week. I think it's just getting used to play again. But there's one thing you can't deny: Jaden Daniels is a weapon in the run game. We're both watching this game. If we'll see him throwing the ball more and more as the weeks go on. Dan Quinn has said that wasn't really they're not going to do that every week. It was just a game plan specific thing, and again, a lot of them were read options or RPOs where he decided to keep the ball himself anyway. So a lot of those are designed to whatever the quarterback sees. So you can't really say much away from him. But what you can say is, again, he's got a strong arm. The way he released the football, I was just fascinated by watching that. It was just like boom, that's out, boom, that's out. And then when you compare that with the way he was with his legs as well, it's like sort of a bit like it's like a hybrid between Josh Allen and Justin Fields kind of way. He's like more powerful runner than Lamar Jackson, you could say, but he's certainly at the goal line. He was a weapon going in twice. So good start for Daniels.
I agree with you, thinking he was the best rookie quarterback. I think by a considerable distance in the first in week one. He looked pretty electric, which was, I think, as a if you're a Commanders fan, that's really good that's a breath of fresh air almost, because they've not had something like that in a while. On his passing, we'll hope to see more, because we didn't really get a good enough sample size really to criticize it. But his playmaking ability was something that would be really interesting, because he is quick. My word, is he quick? And if you've got someone like that behind the line of scrimmage, it's a really interesting thing for your offense, because it just unlocks something completely different. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about with Jaden Daniels. They had a tough old start with the Bucs. I didn't expect the Bucs to be as good as they were.
A tough defense as well. That defense has got a lot of talent on it.
Yeah.
Hopefully Levante David's okay. He left the game for a bit, but yeah, that Bucs defense was a really good test for Daniels, and yeah, he was on that left the best lasting impression on me. We'll talk about the other two guys as well. We'll start with Caleb Williams, who his Bears were victorious against the Titans in Soldier Field after a late Will Levis pick six in a day that the Bears sucked offensively. It wasn't Williams. The running backs they couldn't run the ball very well, and the receivers didn't look that great as well, which is obviously with the amount of top players they have. But you've got to say fair play to the Titans defense, which they've spent a lot of money on this off season. But yeah, Williams had the worst stat line of the rookies, but he wasn't the one that. I think I wouldn't say that's too much of a red flag, because he was asked to push the ball downfield 2 yards more than any of the other rookies. So Daniels and Nix, both of their average depth of target was 5 yards. For Williams, obviously seen as a very advanced quarterback, his average depth of target was 7.7 yards. So again, it was a more advanced thing for him to deal with in week one right away. And he looked the most NFL ready out of all of them as well. He just looked like an NFL quarterback. His mannerisms as well. He and Daniels are very close. I think for me. But the running elements pushed Daniels ahead for me, I think. The good news is he had the best offensive line of the bunch. It's just a shame that the skilled position players underperformed, sort of let Caleb down a little bit. I'm looking forward to next week. Obviously, they can go back and look at those issues, because from the way Williams looked, like the decisions he was making, there was one sack where he should have thrown the ball, but I'm nitpicking really. For me, it was Bo Nix that I was a little bit more worried about. He was the one we saw most of. He had 51 dropbacks and was lost to Seattle. A very fun game, that one. Lots of safeties and field goals. It was fun just watching that at the corner of our eyes on Sunday. I liked his movement. I thought he was sneaky athletic compared to how he's built, because obviously he's built as like a pocket passer. His pocket presence was really good as well. His ability to feel pressure. We saw that a lot because the Broncos offense. The Broncos offensive line was terrible. Second most pressures, 22. He was only sacked twice, so again shows the pocket presence. But there were some really bad throws. A few times he went off platform. But he doesn't have the arm to make those kind of throws. So I think he really needs to look at that, and because there were some issues where he should have just again ran like he normally would, because he just I think he doesn't have the physical tools to be able to play hero ball like a Josh Allen, and that's what he was doing at times. We saw it a bit of Tua early on. He's a quarterback that was similarly built to Nix in this. Coming out of the draft, obviously Tua is a lot more accurate than Nix, but there's just the way that those sort of Sean Payton, Drew Brees kind of quarterbacks, those style. That's how Nix was portrayed early on. He doesn't have the Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen arm or body to be able to try to do throws in his, or Jordan Love, for example, throws in his back foot downfield and things like that. So that was a little bit of a concern, but Nix's movement was really impressive for me, and hopefully Payton can have a look at the film and adjust that, because I didn't think he was terrible. It's just there were some decisions that had me questioning a little bit. Again, it might just be because when you're pressured 22 times, it might just be that it just got to him a little bit. And as a rookie, that is something that you could point to. But that there is, for all three of these rookie quarterbacks, I think they've all got a future in the NFL because there are some things that you can work on and you can take a look at as well. So certainly a bonus for the three, and yeah, starting the first game week one as well. Some summer sitting. So for these guys, I think it's. I was impressed by all three of them, but for me, it was Jaden Daniels that really was the better of the three. How do you feel, Ollie?
I totally agree. Jaden Daniels was by far the best. Bo Nix, I caught glimpses of him on Sunday. I didn't fully watch the Broncos Seahawks game. As you say, he's got to be a bit more pedantic with how he plays. He's not going to be a gunslinger. I thought some of his throws were. He looked okay. Some of his throws weren't very impressive. I think it was a similar story for Williams as well. I think you were saying the triple headed wide receiver threat of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Roma Dunze did not really help him at all against the Titans, where many expected them to beat them quite soundly. And if it wasn't for a implosion from Will Levis, they wouldn't have got anywhere close, really. So yeah, they started well. Williams got his first win, which I will definitely build his confidence up for the rest of the season. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how all three of them develop. The stat you said about Williams was interesting, the fact that he was playing a bit more of an advanced role compared to the other two. I think that shows the faith. Well, obviously shows the faith the Bears have in him. Now it's about repaying that faith, because we know what the Bears and their quarterback carousel has been like for many a year. So they'll hope that they have finally found the one. It's going to be another real critical year for the Bears, quarterback-wise.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think for all three of them we'll see, but yeah, for the Bears, you've sort of more ready to win now than I certainly agree with you. There are three more primetime games this week, going back to Monday Night Football as well. We saw the Chiefs hold on to beat Baltimore in the kickoff homecomer. They look really good, more explosive on offense as well. The Ravens were better than I thought they would look as well, especially with the amount of starters they've lost. Lamar was great. It came down to the final drive in that game, and their rookie Xavier Worthy was a star in that game. And then on Friday, we saw the Brazil game between the Eagles and Packers. It was Philly who won it thanks to a monster debut from Saquon Barkley. But the Packers will be thinking, how do we lose this one? Did you have the same view, Ollie? It's just, I think for me, what cost you was the couple of turnovers at the start of the game and only getting 2 field goals off them.
Missed opportunities in week one, missed opportunities, sloppy offense, which, yeah, it wasn't a good look for the Packers. That should have been their game to win. It wasn't. They missed all those opportunities. A missed field goal again, which I'm not too worried about, because Braden Navarson, the new kicker for the Packers, he looked good. I think week one, undrafted free agent, I'm going to definitely give him the benefit of the doubt, because he looked good. Yeah, 2 turnovers for 6 points against the Eagles, who looked really good. I was quite low on the Eagles going into them. I didn't think they would be as good as they were. Still a few questionable throws from Jalen Hurts, I have to say. But offensively and defensively, they were sound once they started to tidy things up. Yeah, they'll be good again. I'm not too worried about the Packers either. They've just got to navigate a couple of weeks without Jordan Love after his injury, which a lot of people were worried it was going to be an ACL sprain. And there were videos circling around of that slow-mo of his knee jarring, and everyone was expecting the worst. And now reports are saying that he's doing everything in his power to start week 2. So the best possible news, really. It was for the Packers, it could have derailed their whole season. They will survive. I think, well, they've got the Titans on Sunday. So it's a Malik Willis revenge game potentially on Sunday, which would be interesting to see. But as I said, for the Eagles, it was a impressive showing for them as well. And I think, especially with Saquon firing as he did, they'll be very happy to see him back to his best almost.
Yeah, elsewhere, the Lions beat Matthew Stafford's Rams in the second game back in Detroit. That game was fun. One of the favourite ones I enjoyed watching this week, with the Lions winning thanks to David Montgomery walk-off overtime touchdown. They really impressed me. I thought the defense, which was the thing that sort of held them back last year, which looked really good. I think it'll be maybe the thing that gets them over the top to the Super Bowl, for example, this year. And the Rams look really good, but their injuries are really starting to pile up now, which is a bit of a worry. Puka Nakua, for example, and then there was quite a lot of offensive linemen now that they could be missing for week 2 and beyond. So the Rams look good, but the injuries are a concern, as I thought they would be at the start of the year in our preview podcast. Elsewhere in week 1, the Texans got first blood in the AFC South race, being the only team to win after beating the Colts 29-27. A great duel between Stroud and Anthony Richardson, who had one hell of a bomb, and the Texans ran the ball well too, which was a surprise because of how bad they were running the ball last year. Sam Darnold looked really good in his first game for the Vikings, whilst the Giants looked horrible in both their uniforms and their plays. 28-6 for the Vikings that game. And finally, the Chargers ran all over the Raiders to get revenge for their primetime 60-burger last year, at the end of last year, in Jim Harbaugh's first game as head coach. Now, you notice there's 2 teams we didn't mention there, and that's because they actually play tomorrow night. It's the first Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football of the season, and it'll be one of the most watched ones as well, because it's a huge game in a tight race for the AFC East, also in the AFC playoff picture as well, which I think is going to come right down to the wire, because both the Dolphins and the Bills, who won last week, play in this game, but obviously they can't go to 2-0. Both of them can't go to 2-0. So let's preview this game, because there can only be one winner. We're going to start with Miami. They were trailing 17-7, about to go 24-7 down midway through the third quarter, in their win against Jacksonville, before Javon Holland punched the football out of Travis Etienne, hands on the goal line. The Dolphins recovered that, and then shortly after, Tyreek Hill went for an 80-yard bomb into the end zone, just down the sideline, trickling down. I don't know how he didn't go out of bounds, to be honest with you, because it was one hell of a play from Tyreek. The Dolphins defense stepped up in after that as well. They hardly allowed any yards for the Jags in the second half, after they were getting torched in the first half. And I'd go as far as saying that was a statement win for the Dolphins, working through the adversity of the police situation with Tyreek Hill and Calais Campbell and Johnny Smith earlier in the day, which looked very rash, judging from the body cam footage. A very, very rash thing, and you can see why it shook up Hill and Campbell and Smith, and probably again, and the whole locker room. It got Mike McDaniel to a very emotional. I'm talking about it in the press conferences afterwards as well. A poor start, but they came from behind to win against a playoff type opponent. And McDaniel said it after the game, that he's not so sure they win that game the past 2 years, and I'm not so sure either, because they have struggled to really grind out wins like that against tough opponents. They've done a lot of work this offseason to do that, on mental toughness and things like that. And with everything that went on with that team, whether off the field or on the field that game, that mental toughness that they've been working on, well, it showed on Sunday, didn't it?
I mean, the Dolphins have always struggled with that mental toughness, and they got over it in week 1. So it is a statement in that regard to show that they can do it. But I wouldn't, as far as say it's a statement win. If you can do that in week 16, 17, guarantee yourself a playoff spot, which is what they've struggled to do, then that's definitely a statement win. Because I wasn't too impressed with the Dolphins' play in general. I mean, you can talk about what happened before the game with Tyreek Hill, Calais Campbell, and Johnny Smith. Not the perfect build, of course, but they will see themselves as professionals, and they will think that even with that going on, they would have played a little bit better on both sides of the ball, because their run game was not too impressive for the Dolphins, which Matt McDaniel will really want to sort out, because that's a big factor in their game. They'll be happy to get that win, though. I mean, 1-0 looks lovely to start the year, of course. And the only way is up, really, I think, for the Dolphins. Because, yes, it was a great win, a big mentally to get that win, I think is really good. Like you said, the key for them will be to do it in December time, where they usually really struggle, and that will be the big takeaway for me for this Dolphins team. If their mental toughness has really improved, but they've got to sort out that run game first and foremost for me.
Yeah. So that there was a little bit of teething problems with not being able to run the football. Both Mostert and Achan did end up getting banged up in this game as well, so they're questionable going into this game. But they brought Jeff Wilson in at the end of the game, a more physical back, and they managed to really run the clock down towards the end. And so they have different ways, different running backs. We've got Jaden Wright in there as well. I wouldn't say I'm too concerned about the run game. There are ways to adjust if something's not done. They did that in this game as well. So and they adjust defensively as well. So talking about coaching, their coaching won in this game, the way they adjusted both on offense and defense in the second half. They're going to need the coaching. They're also going to need the mental toughness in the game that's coming up, because they have to face their demons and beat the Buffalo Bills, who have dominated them the entire Sean McDermott era. Since he came over to be Buffalo head coach from Carolina in 2017, the Bills are 13-2 against the Dolphins. One of those wins in the playoff, which is why it's an odd number. But 4 of the last 5 meetings since Mike McDaniel came in have been one-score games, so they've been very, very close games. The Dolphins just haven't been able to get over the hump to beat the Bills. Only won one of those games, and they've had their last couple of seasons ruined at the end of the season by Josh Allen and the Bills because of that, because they've not been able to get over and win the games. But they were leading in quite a few of them as well. So that has been an issue to try and grind out a win against Buffalo. On paper, going into the season, you'd think that this is the year that the Dolphins this is their best chance of beating the Bills and winning their first AFC East title since 2008, because the Bills look weaker. They've lost a load of defensive guys, stalwarts in this regime that is now in its 8th season. They've lost Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. They've also lost on defense. Also lost Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, some offensive linemen as well. On offense, that are big parts of the offense, and they haven't really spent the resources to replace them. They've got a very young team now. They're rebuilding Bill's side, but they still look really good. And with Superman, Josh Allen back there, of course, as long as you've got the playmakers who can win at catch point or get open, it doesn't matter who they are. As long, you'll still win football games. You just win it in a different way. It's sort of how the Chiefs did last year, for example. I think that's how the Bills will look this year. And they've got a run game, which is crucial for them as well. Finally, they've got a run game in James Cook, who's probably one of the best players in their entire team. And it's exactly what they did against the second half to come from behind to beat the Cardinals. There were some team problems on both sides of the ball. They went 17-3 down. But after that, and Josh Allen lost a fumble, they just switched. He was awesome. He's got 4 total touchdowns, 2 in the air, 2 in the ground. And the offense looked good because, again, you have players like Matt Collins and Keon Coleman who can win at the catch point, and then you have players who can get open like Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel. So it'll look different, this Bills offense, but there's still got ways to win at the catch point and get open against DBs as well, because that's just what Allen needs. I was a little bit worried about the defense at times in the win against Arizona, but they stepped up when they needed to win the game in the fourth quarter. So they certainly still have individual moments of brilliance from the young guys, but they are very banged up there. But you have to say, fair play to the Bills. It's huge for themselves come from behind to win, especially, again, with their young team, a lot of young players on defense and a lot of new starters on offense as well. It's important for them because, even though they have lost a lot of guys, winning that game coming from behind in a shootout against Arizona, they themselves can believe that they are still good, can't they, after the way they played?
I was never too low on the Bills, if I'm being honest. Yeah, they've lost a lot of players, like you said, but my biggest concern, honestly, was going to be Sean McDermott, because there were certainly some questions hanging around his name come last season. To start, they were not impressive at all, really, against those Cardinals. The Cardinals looked really, really good as well. To be fair to them, I think they definitely didn't deserve to lose the way they played, especially that first half. But I think
Kyler was great.
Yeah,
Kyler Murray, if you got him in fantasy, Kyler Murray's going to be awesome. This is probably the best Kyler has ever looked with his offense called the Drew Petzing. Just hopefully that he doesn't leave for a head coaching job, because the last couple, with what the Cardinals did last year, obviously with Gannon on defense and Petzing on offense, and this year with Murray back fully healthy and added weapons, you just gotta hope that he sticks around because Kyler has looked very, very good.
I think the Cardinals will be really good this year, but I think for the Bills, that was a big win for them, a really big win with a team that has you'd sort of say rebuilding, but they have I think they're ready, they're reloading and ready to go again with a younger team, which I think makes it a lot more exciting for fans of the Bills. I think to be able to come back and win against that Cardinals team that were looking really dangerous is a really good look for the coaches as well. I think that's big for McDermott. He needs to continue that. It is only week one. That's the big storyline from every single game. It's just got to continue. It is a different Bills team, and maybe from the Dolphins win last week, it's a different Dolphins team. So this Thursday night game, you could not call because they are two pretty different teams from what we saw last year. Bills managed to take a really nice win, but so did the Dolphins, and I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot more to come from the Dolphins than there is the Bills, maybe. So I mean, this is, as you say, this could be one of the best Thursday night football games. We'll see, and it's only week 2, so yeah, just bring it on.
Absolutely. We'll talk about some keys to victory for both teams now. Again, because of the home team will start the Dolphins. They have to win a turnover battle in this game. Allen, as we saw on Sunday, he can be prone to turning the ball over. He has done it a lot. He has thrown a lot of interceptions. He's fumbled the ball, on occasion as well. In fact, a lot of the times against the Dolphins, he'll either throw 4 touchdowns and be absolutely brilliant, or throw 3 picks and it's one of the two, or have 3 turnovers and a couple of touchdowns as well. It's normally one of the two. So the Dolphins will be hoping they can force Allen to make some turnovers. He has done it in this series quite a lot. It's just they've not been able to take advantage of that. Only again, the one time in the 5 games with McDaniel as head coach. They also need to carry on being better in short yardage. There have been moments in a majority of these games against Buffalo where the Dolphins have struggled on 3rd and short. McDaniel has really struggled play calling in that scenario in general. But then there are games against Buffalo, whether it's the one in the snow or the postseason game, or the one the end of last year. Sorry, the one in his the 2 in the regular season in his first season. There are opportunities where the Dolphins could have won that game, those games, but again they go from 4th down or 3rd. They basically struggle on 3rd and 4th and short. But they've made that a real emphasis this off season. Against the Jaguars, they tried some new things and they worked. They got the fullback Alec Ingold involved. They got Jeff Wilson coming into this game late to try and secure that big running back short yardage. They've got Johnny Smith as well. They've got him using plays in motion and things as well. A big target like Travis Kelce does for the Chiefs sometimes. He'll get the ball in motion. And they didn't try any screen passes or outside runs on 3rd and 4th and short, which is which haven't really worked because that's what they're expected to do because McDaniel has done it a lot. The tendency is there on film, so teams expect that, and then they've come short in those games against Buffalo previously. So if they can carry on what they did against Jacksonville, then that's a real key to victory for the Dolphins because they were great in short yardage in that game, which is a trend that they didn't have normally. And then my final one for the Dolphins is they've got to get out in front early because when this team is out in front early, they're very, very difficult to beat. Because teams are going to have to compete with them in the shootout, and that is very hard to do. The Dolphins, when leading, are a lot better than the Dolphins when trailing, and there's no gap like it in any other team in the league. The Dolphins with a lead are pretty much unstoppable. But if you can get out, stop them early, score first, there is a huge difference. And that's not there with the Bills. The Dolphins rarely lose games they score first in. If the first few plays are defended well, sometimes they struggle to recover. We saw that on Sunday. Obviously, they came back and won that game, but they can't start slow again if they want to beat the Bills because this team has to lead from the front.
I think, that last point you've summed it up perfectly with how the Dolphins are built to play. They are a shootout team. Defensively, they will want to improve to make sure that they're not a shootout team. They want to give their offense some buffers, which they can do. They did do it times last year. They want to do it this year. I think they want to show it. Well, they definitely want to show it against the Bills. Whether they can will be the big question. But as you said, they have to get out ahead. It was a slow start for them, and that's what really checked their progress against the Jaguars last week. To get themselves out ahead will be vital for them, and it's not a tricky thing for them with the players they have around them. They've especially in these early games, that is their bread and butter.
But if they win the toss, don't be surprised to see them take the ball first, because they have done that on occasion. And again, in a game like this, they need to do that. So I really wouldn't be surprised to see that happen, because if they can get out in front early, if they can run the ball well at the start, then that puts pressure on the Bills rather than the Dolphins, and they can go about their game normally, unlike it was in Jacksonville. Again, coming back and winning a game like that, they don't do that very often. So that was good for them, and it shows they can win in different ways, which they've been trying to do. But their main way of winning, they need to get out in front early. So yeah, it is a key. As for Buffalo, now I think they need to establish the run, because the Dolphins had trouble stopping Etienne and Bigsby early on. They're also weak on their interior without Christian Wilkins as well, so that they can be run out inside. And one of the best interior running backs in the league, James Cook, so that makes a lot of sense. And if Dolphins commit more guys to stopping James Cook, then they will leave the likes of Dalton Kincaid, in favourable matchups against linebackers. Or so if they can commit to the run early, trying to establish it with James Cook, then it can open up the rest of the offense, and they can really get to the Dolphins, who have a weakness at cornerback after the loss of Xavier Howard in the offseason. So there is a obviously Jalen Ramsey will be there. We'll be interested to see how Jalen Ramsey is used, but because it's a new defense and they're very multiple, this defense, compared to Fangio's one, which is very Vic Fangio. So it's all about the Bills establishing the run early and then opening the rest of their passing game up, and hopefully, and that's how they won the game, the first game last year, where it was a big win for the Bills, unlike the game that was one score at the end of the year. If they are going to win, they need to start the ball, run the ball early. If they have success with that, it'll open up the rest of the passing game, and then it'll be very hard for the Dolphins to come back, because once Allen gets going, then then it's hard to stop. They also need to carry on their special teams dominance, and I mention this because in this rivalry in the East, there's a couple of games that have been decided on special teams plays. So it was a one-score game, and the winning touchdown in the game last year was the return touchdown. Again, had that not happened, that game would have gone to overtime, and the Dolphins could have won the AFC and had a home playoff game. Fine margins there. The Bills have dominated the Dolphins on special teams in this rivalry the last couple of years. So yeah, if they can carry that on, then that's a real key to victory for them. But they let up a kickoff return last week, so normally it's Miami with the shoddy tackling. The Bills did let up the first kickoff return touchdown last week, so they will be looking to play a lot better. But certainly that could have an effect. And then for me, the Bills have to crown the middle of the field. This is the way you beat the Dolphins. To stop Miami's offense, I think you need two safeties that need to be deep at all times to sort of stop the off the top threat from Hill and Waddle. But you also need to crowd the middle of the field, because that is where they have the success across the middle. The short passes across the middle, and then the medium passes, which is a real threat. You need to force Tua to throw it outside the numbers and on the move, and then you may get some mistakes from Tua that way because he's uncomfortable and it's not where he likes to. Because Tua on song is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Tua, where he has to try and make plays up himself, then the Dolphins are a little bit vulnerable. So that's what the Bills have to do. Crowd the box, the middle of the field, and keep two safeties back at all times, because that's the blueprint of how to beat the Dolphins. Now, they've been very good at that in the past, but this time they're missing Matt Milano at linebacker. They're also missing Teron Johnson, their slot corner, who is probably one of the best in the league and certainly their best DB. So with the guys they've lost in free agency as well, it's going to be a lot harder to do that this time than it was last time, of course. Because when you're missing Matt Milano, Teron Johnson, as well as the veterans they had last year that they've lost, like Poyer and Tre'Davious White and Micah Hyde, they're going to have a tougher time doing this than they did before, haven't they?
I think you mentioned it, stack in the middle of the field. They've got to do that. They're they've got to rattle Tua. They've got to get some takeaways. They've got to either get some pressure, force some fumbles, make him throw some bad balls, get some picks. I saw a stat on the Sunday said Russell Douglas I can't remember from what week it was, but he's got 13 interceptions to his name, one of the most in the league. And he's someone that goes about his business quietly at corner, but he is a ball hawk. He will find that ball. He will intercept that ball. That's going to be a huge key to the Bills throughout the season, just forcing turnovers, giving Allen the ball, and then just running away. Because the more they give Allen the hot hand, they are more on song. Their defense can be brilliant. Sean McDermott can cook up some stuff on that defense, but it is important that they rattle Tua early. And as you said, vice versa, Dolphins have got to get that good start. That will be the key for me. If the Dolphins can, as you say, if the Dolphins can get that good start, or if the Bills can stop them early, even get a turnover or two in the first half, then that will arguably decide the game. And if neither of those happen, if neither of that happens, then we're in for one hell of a game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's prediction time for that game as well. And the Dolphins are favored by 2.5. It was 1.5 earlier in the week, but after the announcement that Johnson was out for the Bills, it's gone up to 2.5 points. It is tough to predict this game. I would feel more confident about the Dolphins winning if both running backs were healthy. Now, neither Achane or Mostert have practiced this week, but in a short week, they don't tend to practice very much anyway, so we won't know until the practice report today whether they're going to sit up or not. But it's not the end of the world if they don't play, because again, you've got the rookie Jalen Wright, a third-round pick. You've also got Jeff Wilson, who again had some success against Jacksonville in the game last week as well. So I'm going to go Miami. It's a home game. It's going to be humid. It's going to be a very hot night in Miami. It's not going to be like it would be at 1 p.m. on a Sunday there, but it is. The Bills won't be used to that humidity at night. They have struggled to play in Miami before compared to playing in Buffalo, of course. And I think that might be the difference in the game that I think, honestly, is so tight because both teams look similar in week one. They're quite tight. The East is going to be one hell of a dogfight, especially between these two teams. Maybe we'll see what happens with the Jets, see if they can turn it around after week one. But yeah, I think that the home advantage may be the thing that gives the Dolphins the win in this game. How do you feel?
I think Miami home advantage is always pretty big. That's what it's like going down to Florida. I feel like the Bills might be used to it though, or more used to it compared to other teams. Still a factor, but I think the Bills' performance and win over the Cardinals was more impressive than the Dolphins' win over Jacksonville. That doesn't mean to say Miami will jump up back to their normal, back to the level that we expected them to be at for this game against the Bills, but the Bills seem a bit more on song, and I think that will continue. It's so close. The spread is so close as well. But I am going to pick the Bills for this one. I think they've had the Dolphins number. They've had Mike McDaniel's number.
It'll be close. Again, for the last 5 have been one-score games. It's just, can the Dolphins get over the hump? And that's the thing, because they haven't been able to do that so far. So I don't blame you for picking the Bills. And at least one of us is going to be right. So that's something to review next week anyway. We'll now go over to the rest of the week 2 slate, and I'll just go through each game, and we'll just pick really quickly who we think is going to win before we finish the podcast. So we'll start in Baltimore. The Ravens host the Raiders. They're both 0-1, of course, but the Ravens are 9.5 point favourites in this game. With the way Ravens looked last week, and with the way the Raiders looked last week, especially with Antonio Pierce making some weird decisions on 4th down and etc., I just give me the Ravens to win this one big as well.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if they cover the spread, because 9.5, it is a pretty big spread, but yeah, give me the Ravens for this one pretty easily.
Right, we'll go over to Carolina. They host the 1-0 Chargers. The Chargers are 6.5 point favourites on the road, and yeah, that's a tough one because they weren't that impressive to me, the Chargers. I'm going to actually pick the Panthers. I don't know if they win or not, but I'm going to pick them to cover. I think this will be a close game because I think they'll be determined to pure point. And yeah, if they can stop the run, then the Chargers will be a little bit vulnerable because they're a very run-heavy team now. So yeah, I'm going to pick the Cardinals, the Panthers to upset the spread there. I'm not sure if they win, but yeah, certainly think that'll be a close game.
I don't know. The Chargers, as you say, they weren't overly impressive with their debut, with John Harbaugh's debut, but I think they'll cover that spread. The Panthers were not impressive one bit. I'd like to think they'll improve, but I think it's going to be the Chargers to cover the spread as well.
We'll go over to Dallas, where the two teams that sort of impress us the most in week one, the Cowboys and the Saints face off in Jerry World. They're both 1-0, of course. The Cowboys are favored by 6.5, and I think it's very hard to beat the Cowboys in that building. I can't see that changing, even with how good the Saints looked. The Cowboys look really good as well. They're at home. Yeah, give me the Cowboys to win and cover the spread there.
I agree. I think the Saints could make it close, but I think they were a little bit elevated by the Panthers as well from week one. So yeah, cover the spread, especially in Jerry World.
Awesome. For me, the game of the early window is the Bucks heading to Detroit. A playoff matchup, of course, from last year, rematch there. Detroit are 7-point favourites at home. Now, I think they'll win, but that spread is the Bucks look really good. And I'm going to pick the Bucks to cover it because 7 points. I think the Bucks impressed me, and the playoff game was pretty close as well. So yeah, give me the Bucks to cover, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lions win.
I agree. I mean, the Bucks defense looked really, really good last week. So I think 7 points. Well, was it 7.5 the spread?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I've got 7 here, so it probably is 7.5. Either way, it's one score.
I mean, I don't think it'll be a one-score game. So
yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. We'll go over to Green Bay now. Now, they don't host the Titans. That's the week after. They host the Colts this week. The Colts are 3.5-point favourites going into Lambeau Field. Now, I'm going to pick the Colts to cover just because we don't know what's going to happen at quarterback for the Green Bay. We don't know how they're going to look. So, but yeah, so I'm going to pick the Colts to go 1-1 on the season.
Yeah, I'm gonna cover myself and say the Colts as well. I just don't know. Well, if Jordan Love's going to play, and I don't know how Malik Willis is going to play if he starts. And Anthony Richardson looked really nice on Sunday. He looked really good to push the Texans to just 2 points was a solid performance from them. So yeah, I think they'll go into Lambeau Field and they will take the win. So yeah, give me the Colts.
The Browns go into Jacksonville on the early window as well. The Jags are 3.5-point favourites in that one. And with the way the Browns looked, and the way the Jags looked in the first half, I'm going to pick the Jags to cover there because they impressed me. Brian Thomas Jr. looked really good as their rookie receiver, and yeah, Trevor Lawrence played well until the second half. If they can carry on for a whole half, give me the Jags to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely give me the Jags for that.
Absolutely. Going over to the NFC now, an NFC All-NFC matchup. The Niners going to Minnesota. Sam Darnold goes for a little bit of a revenge game against his former team, the Niners. But I think it'll be the Niners who win. I'll pick them to cover a spread at 5.5 points, but I can see it being so. I think it'll be closer than you can imagine, especially in Minnesota, the way they looked. But yeah, the Niners are too good to pick against them.
I think the 49ers will just get over the spread, but yeah, it'll be closer than a lot of people think. The Vikings have a really good roster, despite Sam Darnold playing all this year at quarterback. But yeah, just give me the 49ers just.
Sticking in the NFC West, the Seahawks go into New England. Both teams want to know, of course. The Seahawks are favored by 3.5 points. And I was really impressed with the way that Geno Smith looked in their new offense. I was impressed by how involved they got Jackson Smith and Jigba in the game as well. So give me the Seahawks to cover 3.5 points on the road. Even though the Patriots look really good, I think the Seahawks are just a better team in general.
Yeah, I agree. I think 3.5, even though they are on the road, is definitely coverable for the Seahawks. I think Patriots will put up a bit of a fight again. I think they look like a dogged team this year. But yeah, Seahawks for me.
Another road favourite are the New York Jets, who are 3.5-point favourites going into Tennessee. Both teams 0-1, of course, after a disappointing game, especially for the Titans' perspective, losing with a last-minute pick six by Will Levis. I am going to pick the Titans to rebound. I don't think they win the game, but I think they can. The Jets away from home. I'm going to be a bit spicy there and say the Titans cover the spread.
No, I don't think so. I don't think the Titans were not overly impressed, especially from their implosion. I think the Jets will cover that one, even on the road. The Jets for me.
Awesome. And the last game of the 6 p.m. window is an all NFC East tie. The Commanders welcome the Giants. And with the way the Giants looked last weekend, I am shocked it's only a 1.5-point spread. So if I was to pick like a lock of the week or whatever, I'd say the Commanders smash the Giants in this one. I guess you're feeling the same.
Yeah, I feel the same. Giants, I'd like to think, will make a little bit of an improvement, and hopefully they make it a game against the Commanders. But yeah, give me the Commanders on that one all day, I think.
Awesome. Only 3 games in the late window this week. 2 sort of middle of the road games, and then there's a big one, of course. We'll start in the NFC West. The Rams going to Arizona. The Cardinals are 1.5-point favourites, actually, after their impressive game against the Bills, and obviously, of course, with the Rams being injured. Now, I made this mistake last year. I thought the Cardinals would do very well in the division, and they didn't. So I am going to pick Sean McVay's Rams to upset the Cardinals, who are the favourites in this game. But it is awesome to see the Cardinals are favoured in the game.
It's nice to see, especially after their performance against the Bills. But I'm of the same opinion. I think the Rams will go into Arizona and take that win. Yeah, I like the Rams despite their injuries. They are just a really well coached team. So yeah, give me the Rams.
Justin Fields' Steelers are favoured going into Denver in the other game in the late window, other than the big one. The 3.5-point favourites, the Steelers are. The Broncos didn't really feel with much confidence, so I'm going to pick the Steelers to cover that game, and we're going to see a lot of Russell Wilson on the sideline.
I think for Broncos fans who are hoping for a bit of a hate watch, as some might say. I don't think that, they won't get that. And I don't think they'll challenge the Steelers too much. As you say, offensively, they weren't anything special. Steelers will cover that one.
Awesome. And then finally, the big one, the Nance and Romo game in the late window. The Bengals going into Kansas City. The Chiefs are 5.5-point favourites. And with the way the Chiefs look, I'm inclined to pick the Chiefs to cover the spread.
Yeah, it'd be such a Bengals thing to come and cover that spread and win that game even. I don't think they will even cover the spread. I think they'll make it a lot closer. I think they'll play a lot better, but I think, Chiefs the Chiefs look brilliant. So, I'll take them.
Awesome. And then Sunday Night Football, the Texans host the Bears. The Texans are 6.5-point favourites. And then going up against a rookie quarterback on Sunday Night Football, I can see them winning by more than 6.5. So give me the Texans to cover this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a bit of a baptism of fire for Caleb Williams, especially after only throwing for 93 yards in week 1 against the Titans. So, I will have the Texans on that one.
Awesome. And then Monday Night Football, the Falcons, who are very disappointing in week 1, go into Philadelphia to play the Eagles, who, of course, got the win in Brazil. The Eagles with a sort of mini bye, playing on Friday night and then going to play Monday Night Football. So that'll probably help them as well. So give me the Eagles to cover the spread here, getting an extra day's rest.
Yeah, I think the Falcons going into the link will struggle anyway. And after their performance on Sunday, I think it's the Eagles want to lose. And that'll be a very easy game for the Eagles. I think the Falcons will struggle again.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me, Ollie. It's been great to have you on the podcast. We'll get you on throughout the season. And thank you for listening to us or watching if you're watching the video version on both Spotify and YouTube. Thank you for sticking with us for week 1, for tuning in, because I thought it was one hell of a week. I really enjoyed watching the football this week. And it's just so great to have it back as well, which is a great feeling. It was so great to watch it with some of you guys as well on Sunday in Birmingham. It was great to meet people both who work for the company and also who do listen to the podcast as well. So that was a fun experience. For now, I've been Sam. He's been Olly Darcy, and we'll see you for week 2 and looking into week 3, guys. Games coming quick, thick and fast now. Have fun watching football this weekend, and I will see you to recap it all next week.